So if you play Master Duel, you know that the Snake Eyes Fiendsmith stuff is now legal. But nobody is doing the right combos. I swear, I'm seeing a plethora of combos that play directly into all of the hand traps or in on suboptimal end boards. So today I'm going to show you guys how to make the most optimal Snake Eyes Fiendsmith end boards in the Master Duel by playing around every single hand trap. Now in Master Duel, it's different than the TCG because we got the Azumina stuff after Beatrice and Lacrima got banned. But in Master Duel, you have basically everything legal, so it's 120% full power. Alright, so the first combo with Snake Eye Ash is pretty straightforward. But I see a lot of people doing this wrong, either not making the optimal end board or playing directly into Nib. So we're going to search Popular, then go for Temple. Same shenanigans here, then we're going to scale the copy of Snake Eyes Diabellstar, tribute it with the Ash to bring out the Oak. Oak will bring back the Ash. Now here is where I see a lot of people mess up. A lot of people are going with the Ash and the Poplar into the Moon, which is 5 summons. Again, this is a 4th summon after Oak resolves, so any other summons that we do play directly into Nib territory. You do not want to go Moon directly and get nibbed. Instead, we're going to use the effect of Oak to send away the Poplar and then summon out Flamberge Dragon. So anytime we have Flamberge Dragon on the table, it means we're actually insulated from Nib, because anytime they Nibiru, they're going to tribute the Flamberge, we're going to bring back 2 level 1 bodies, and we get a token. We also potentially get the effect of Temple later on to special summon something back. So as long as you have 3 to 4 bodies, we should be in good shape. We can go IP Masquerena into SP on their turn, or go into the Princess, bring back Flamberge, and have the IP in the scale to bring back, which is the most optimal end board after getting nibbed. Then we're going to trigger the Poplar, place back the Snake Eyes Diabellstar, and now we're going to summon it out by placing Oak. Again, we're going to try and leave Flamberge on the table as long as possible just to protect us against Nib. Now we're going to go Moon. So this is honestly probably one of the best spots that you could actually Nibiru a Snake Eyes player if they're doing this combo, which is the most optimal combo, because you're cutting them off of the Fiendsmith unless they hard drew Engraver. Unfortunately, you can't play around that, but let's say that our opponent had Nib. They could nib us here. What happens is we get a token, we trigger the effect of Temple to bring back Oak, and we get the effect of Flamberge as well. So we get 4 bodies, which equates to the Flamberge plus Princess Engrave plus IP and skill, right? Because we use a token plus another body to make IP, then we make Princess bring back the Flamberge. Flamberge effect plays back the IP, and then use those 2 to make like a Nightmare Phoenix or something to clear the Phoenix lock. So that's probably the best place to nib, but if they don't have nib, then we're off. Basically off to the race, because we have the Requiem into the Engraver. When we have Engraver into play, it makes it really, really difficult for our opponent to Nibiru us, because this Engraver can also always come back from the graveyard, and then we can use the effect to send away the nib on field. So that's a lot of advantage. So anytime this gets into rotation, try to hold off the Engraver effect in the graveyard until you absolutely have to use it, right? So here we're forced to link off the Flamberge finally. We go off into sequence and we trigger the Flamberge. Now you might be thinking, oh, you can nib here and that's a clean Nibiru. Well, unfortunately, it's not, because what happens is we have not yet used sequence. So if you Nibiru here, we get a token, plus we get the Oak back, but we haven't used Engraver effect in the grave yet either. So we go Engraver effect, shuffle back the sequence to the extra deck to reset it, bring back Engraver, and then we can equip the Requiem, send away that Nibiru, and then we can actually use the token plus the Engraver to make sequence again. We haven't used the effect yet. There's no restrictions other than activating the effect once per turn, and because we haven't used it yet, because you nibbed early, we're still going to be able to full combo, right? So you do not want to Nibiru them until they've used the effect of sequence, which we're going to be forced to do here, unfortunately. Nibiru here becomes a little bit awkward in the sense that we don't get 4 bodies. Okay, let's say that we're going to resolve the effect of the Lacrima and then go off in the Engraver. It's really important, by the way, that we special summon back the Engraver and not add it back to hand for track, because we're going to have to make Beatrice first before committing the Luri. If we commit the Luri, then Nib later on will actually hurt a lot more. You guys just have to trust me on this one. But I'm saying if we do get Nibiru here, it's a little bit awkward because we get a token, we get Oak, and then we have Engraver. So Engraver will come back, we can equip the Requiem, or the sequence rather, send away that Nibiru, and then we can use 2 bodies to make IP Masquerena, and then we'll have the 3rd body chilling there for IP into SP. So we still clear the Nib, and we get IP into SP, plus we have 4 cards in hand, including like multiple disruptions, right? So that's still pretty good. Honestly, if you can make IP SP and get rid of the Nib, I think that's a really, really good end board still as is. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just obviously a little bit weaker than having the Princess plus the Flamberge as well. If they nibbed us earlier, we would have had, but unfortunately here we lose 1 body, we only end with 3, but that's still okay if we get nibbed. So we're still safe for nib. Here we're going to overlay into Beatrice just for good measure, but before we send anything, we're going to go off into Princess and then bring back the Flamberge, and then we'll use Flamberge effect to actually scale back the Snake Eyes Diabellstar. Now, you might be thinking, oh, well, where's IP in this equation? Well, we're actually going to hard make IP after the fact, and the whole reason for doing this line of sequencing is to play around Nibiru and other hand traps the best possible way you can, right? So here we're going to go off into a Hida just to get us out of the princess lock. This is important that we go for Hida because she's a spellcaster. We're going to use Beatrice to dump Witch. So this is where it deviates a lot from the combos I've seen online, where they're not going for the full combo for Azamina. Like, why would you not? Guys, we have Beatrice in the equation. Snake Eyes has been more powerful than it ever was in the TCG or in Master Duel with everything legal. In the TCG, Lacrima and Beatrice were banned before we got Azamina, but in Master Duel, we still have that, so we have to take advantage of that and abuse it. And Celine just happens to give us 3 spells exactly with the 2 scales and the field spell, so we get 3 counters. We can trigger Lacrima. We can also hold the Lacrima in the graveyard if you want, because that had to shuffle back the sequence. So if they, for whatever reason, still had the nib and they nibbed us, we probably want the sequence in the graveyard to send away with the engraver to get rid of the nib. So that's just one thing to note. So you don't really have to use the Lacrima here to burn. In fact, it's probably safer if you don't. Then we're going to trigger the Celine, and that's going to bring back the Witch that we dumped off of the Beatrice. And then Witch is going to trigger the effect, so we can set a copy of the Azamina, the Deception rather. Deception is going to tribute the Witch, and then we're going to go for the Azamina line. So we add the Azamina, Hallowed. We're going to activate that, and then we're going to go off into the initial Azamina, which is the Mew Arcelago. And this is going to trigger to allow us to add a copy of Wanted. This is important because we want an extra draw, and Wanted allows us to do that in the graveyard. Then we're going to link off into APOLLOUSA finally. So we're finally insulated from nib here on end. And if you get this far, honestly, there's probably no way you can lose. So we're bringing back the Azamina, and then we're going to activate the Azamina. Now, here's a cool thing you can do. You can chain the effect of Wanted because it's a quick play. And because cards remain on the table until they resolve, what happens is we add a copy of Witch for follow-up, and then we can resolve the Azamina by sending that on-board Wanted that has resolved but has not hit the graveyard yet. Then we go off into the ILIA SILVIA. So this is the optimal end board because we're getting the free ILIA SILVIA negate on top of that, and then we get a draw off the Wanted. So now we can bring back the engraver finally, which we haven't used yet, and we're going to hard make the IP Masquerena using that and the last remaining body, which is the Flamberge. So it's a little bit awkward in the sense that you don't get the Flamberge for follow-up, but honestly, this end board is just so incredibly strong. If you think about it, we get the APOLLOUSA with 2 negates, which is optimal, so we don't get Talons take. If you make it for 3 or more, I don't like that. If you get Talons, sometimes you can backfire. We have the IP Masquerena, we have the ILIA SILVIA, and then we also have the Temple to bring back the Oak. Oak will add something back to our hand for follow-up, and then we also get the Fire Body for the Princess to trigger back, and then we can use IP Masquerena as well to go off into the SP. We also have Snake Eyes Bellstar, and then we have multiple hand traps in our hand. Now, another thing we can also do if you want to leave the Flamberge on the table is actually use the effect of Black Witch in your hand, because we haven't used the effect of Summon yet, so we can actually send away the Snake Eyes Bellstar, bring out the Bellstar Black Witch, and use that plus the engraver to make IP, and then that way we just get to keep the Flamberge Dragon on the table as well for a little bit safer. That's something you definitely consider as well. So that's the Snake Eye Ash combo. I don't see anyone doing this. This is the most optimal end board that also plays around all of the hand traps, including Nibiru the Primal Being. All right, guys, so here's the end board with just one Bellstar the Black Witch. It's basically still full combo. Black Witch, as long as she resolves, will get us really far with the Azamina stuff. So we're going to set Deception, activate Deception, tribute the Witch, and then we're going to add a copy of Azamina, activate Azamina, and then go for the Mew Arcelago, which is going to search our deck for a copy of the original Sinful Spoils. Now, original Sinful Spoils is obviously a really good effect in the hand where you can send something to summon out a Snake Eyes monster, but it also has a really good graveyard effect, which we're going to take advantage of. So what we did there was we used Hallowed Azamina to return the Mew Arcelago to our extra deck. If you have a normal summon, ideally you can pair it and then go off in IP Masquerena, so you get a free return from the graveyard instead of on field. But in this case, let's pretend that we only had Witch as a starter plus a discard. So then we're going to activate the Hallowed Azamina and then send the copy of original Sinful Spoils, the Snake Eye, from our hand to the graveyard instead of activating it from our hand. Then we're going to go for ILIA SILVIA. Remember when we said that this has a graveyard effect? Well, it allows you to banish itself, to return the Witch, and then add a copy of Snake Eye Ash to our hand. So this is basically full combo now from here on end. We have a normal summoned, and we're protected because we have ILIA SILVIA before we even committed Ash to the table, which is really, really powerful. So we're really insulated from Nib now. We don't really care as much about playing around Nib, even though this combo does play around Nib quite well, thanks to the fact that, you know, if you're sequencing right, like we just did in the previous combo, this is more or less the same thing. Now we're going to go off into Moon, and then, you know, Popular's going to trigger, bring back the Snake Eyes Bellstar in the zone. We're going to use the effect of Requiem to bring out the Engraver here. And then here we're going to actually use the effect of Requiem to equip to the Engraver, and that gives us a free send off the Oak, because you can send away the Requiem and then go off into the Flamberge Dragon, right? So it gives us a free extra body. We didn't have to commit any other resources. That was for free from the graveyard. Now from here, bring out the Snake Eyes Daybell Star just like in the previous combo. Then we can go off into a copy of Sequence, and then Sequence can trigger, allowing us to go off into Lacrima. Lacrima can either reborn the Engraver, or you can add it back to your hand for the Luri, because we don't really care right now. We're safe from Nib anyways. Previous combo, we didn't want to bring this back and commit Luri to the table, because that would be before we can make APOLLOUSA. We have to commit the extra body, so if you get nibbed, it's kind of a hard punish. But in this case, we don't care because we have ILIA SILVIA protecting from nib, so we can go Fiendsmith Track for Luri, just to deck thin a little bit along the way as well. This really helps get those useless cards out of the deck. Then bring out the Luri, and then use Flamberge plus Luri to go off into IMT Masquerena, trigger Flamberge to bring back the 2 level 1 bodies from the graveyard, and then from here we can go off into the Princess. Princess can bring back the Flamberge, which can scale the IP. And yeah, placement is kind of important. You probably don't want your good monsters in these 2 columns just in case of relinquished anima, but you know, it's not that big of a deal if you're getting this far. Then we're going to go off into Nightmare Phoenix so we can clear the Phoenix, the Princess lock, and then go off into the APOLLOUSA. There might be a prettier way to sequence this, maybe to IP Masquerena into APOLLOUSA to protect it from card effects if you're playing against like Tempai or something. But either way, this is still pretty optimized. Bring back the Engraver. Then finally make Beatrice here the hard way. So you can actually leave Beatrice on the field here. In my build particularly, I don't play any cards like Blackout Laughs to send off with Beatrice. I just think it's win more at that point, and those cards are bricks. But in this case, we can still send the Wanted to get a free draw. So we can Lacrima Burn here, shuffle back the Luri, and then we can use the effect of Wanted to get a draw. And now we basically have full combo with Flamberge on the field. We have ILIA Silva, and we have APOLLOUSA. So yeah, this is with one Witch. So in the case where we have Snake Eye Ash plus Witch plus another copy of a Sinful Spoils card, we can actually do the super broken combo where we can get APOLLOUSA early on. How that works is we normal summon Snake Eye Ash, go off into Poplar, pretty standard shenanigans here, add a copy of the field spell, activate the field spell, and put a copy of Snake Eyes Daybell Star. Now here's where things deviate a little bit. Instead of actually sending the Ash plus the Daybell Star, we're going to link off these 2 into IP Masquerena. Now this is only if we have access to Witch, Ash, plus another Sinful Spoils name in our hand, okay? This is really important for the sequencing. Now we're going to go off in the Poplar effect, trigger, bring back the Ash, and then use Daybell Star to bring back the Poplar. So this gives us 3 spell cards on the field. We have the field spell plus 2 continuous spell cards that the monsters are treated as. So we can go off into Selene here, thanks to this card being a spellcaster, the Snake Eyes Daybell Star. We can bring it back, then go off in APOLLOUSA early on before we do any of our other plays to protect us from the Nibiru or anything of the like. We basically checked off all of the hand traps, right? We checked for Imperm Veiler on the normal summon Ash. We checked for the Mulch Armies, we checked for Max C, and now we finally are checking Nib the hard way. Then we're gonna, in this case, activate Wanted to add Daybell Star. If we didn't have Wanted, you know, just Daybell Star, that's fine. Again, from hand, same combo here. Send away one of the weenies from our scale, place the Deception, activate the Deception, tribute off the Witch. Then we're gonna add a copy of the Hallowed Asmina. In this case, actually, because we drew the original Sinful Spoils, we're gonna actually activate it immediately and then go for the Oak, and then bring back the copy of Poplar, because we're gonna wanna shuffle back this original Sinful Spoils to our deck with the Wanted, so we can search it off of Mew Archelago. So let's say we go ahead and shuffle that back. But if it was another Sinful Spoils card that you can't activate, it's fine. In that case, you would just activate the Hallowed Asmina, and then we would search for the original Sinful Spoils and then activate it to summon out Oak. So kind of the same sequencing, just the other way around. So Archelago will come out here for a free copy of the original Sinful Spoils to add to our hand. Then we're going to link off into the Moon and Close Heaven and go off into our Fiendsmith stuff. Go Requiem effect to summon out the Engraver, and then equip the Engraver here so we get the free Oak, just like the last combo there, and then bring out the Flamberge Dragon, and then go off with the Flamberge plus the sequence. Flamberge will trigger, bring back 2 level 1s, and then from here we trigger the effective sequence to shuffle back, bring out the Lacrima. Lacrima effect will get back the copy of Engraver, and in this case we'll just summon it back to our field. It doesn't really matter. You can go for the Luri play as well, but I think to save space here, just going for the Beatrice, and then Beatrice will send a copy of any card at that point, because we've already gotten rid of everything that we can get value of. We've already gone for Wanted. If we had Witch, we could have sent Wanted here to get that draw, but in this case, we had nothing better to send, so I just sent another copy of Engraver. You might be playing like Blackout or something, or Angel of Blue Tears, maybe. That's definitely something you can send as well off Beatrice. Then we bring back the Flamberge, and then Flamberge will put back the IP, and then we can go off and link off into a Nightmare Phoenix. And Nightmare Phoenix, when it's co-linked, means our monsters cannot be destroyed by battle, so it protects the APOLLOUSA pretty well. And then from there, we just bring back the Asmina, and we can finally put on the last piece in our end board, which is the ILIA SILVIA, and then we also have multiple hand traps. And yeah, this end board is pretty threatening. We made APOLLOUSA early, so it protects you, but again, you do have to have Witch, Ashe, plus any other SINFUL spoils in our hand in order to achieve this full combo. Okay, so here's a replay with one single Engraver. We're gonna go off an Engraver. I still think a lot of people are doing this basic combo wrong and not sequencing it correct, but we're gonna go ahead and tract, discard Lurie. Lurie will bring itself back, and then go off into Requiem. Requiem effect, summon out the second copy of Engraver. Now, we don't have Necroquip Princess in Master Duel, so it does make some lines a little bit more awkward, but they still work in this case, just off one Engraver. And then we're going to go off into sequence, effect, shuffle back, go for the Lacrima. Lacrima effect, remember to summon back the Engraver because we've already used the effect from hand, so we can't do that again. Then go off into Beatrice. Beatrice will dump Snake Eye Ashe, so we get into Engine, and then Princess will bring back the Ashe. So if they had nibbed, they would have nibbed right either when we made the before we made Beatrice, or if they're competent and they know we're going from this line, which we like. If you're making Beatrice here, you're likely going for this line where you have no other engine, so you could just nib on the Princess here and it's fine. You get rid of Princess and it's pretty guaranteed they won't have another fire, plus you get rid of the Snake Eye Ashe in the graveyard, and if it's a mirror match, you have the Hida possibility to revive back their Snake Eye Ashe. So this is probably the right place to nib just before they resolve Princess. But if we're using Princess and getting Ashe, we can be pretty confident that they don't have nib, because there's no way they would let us get this far and go for tempo and get all these free cards, free advantage. No real reason to do that if you had nib. So we're pretty safe from nib here. Use the effect of Ashe to send away that Duel star that we placed off of tempo, then bring back Oak. Oak is going to bring back Ashe. Now we're going to use the Oak effect to actually send away the Princess, and that's important, so we get rid of Princess from this zone so we can actually make the line that we're going to go for, because otherwise we would have had to go for Hida. It would have been a lot more awkward, and there's nothing really good to send with Oak. We don't want to get rid of the tempo, so that's probably the best thing you can do here. Clears the Princess pretty well. Then we go for Nightmare Phoenix, not IP Masquerena. It's really important to go for Nightmare Phoenix here because we already burned through Princess early, which means we're not going to be able to resurrect the FLAMBERGE from our graveyard to scale the IP Masquerena, right? So if we made IP Masquerena, we would just have to keep it on the board if we wanted it there, and then we would be locked out of APOLLOUSA. So it's really important that we go for the Phoenix here because we're actually going to go for APOLLOUSA. So resolve the effect of Poplar on Chainlink 2 to bring back the Duel star. We haven't used the effect yet, so remember that. Then we're going to bring back 2 Weenies and make an APOLLOUSA for 3 using the Phoenix and 2 of the level 1s. Now this gives us exactly enough bodies. We can use the effect of Duel star to place the FLAMBERGE back in the scale and then make IP Masquerena. So it's sort of reversed in this end board. Instead of having FLAMBERGE on the field and IP Masquerena in the scale, we have it the other way around where IP's in the field and then FLAMBERGE is here. So when our opponent summons, we can bring out the FLAMBERGE thanks to Divine Tempo, and then we can use IP Masquerena with FLAMBERGE for SP, so it's like the same thing. Plus we have the APOLLOUSA negates and a grip full of hand traps. All right, guys, so this is the deck that I'm playing with right now. It's honestly, I think, the best variant. We're just playing as low of a deck count as you can to draw as many cards that are good in the deck as possible, because this deck bricks a lot. All the power cards are basically at like 1 or 2, unfortunately, so you do have to hedge for the bricks, and I think playing the lowest amount of cards is the best way to do that. Also, you can draw into your powerful hand traps like Fua, which you definitely want going second, and Max C, of course. Just playing all of the best hand traps in the game right now: 3 Veiler, 3 Nib, 3 Imperm, 3 Ashe, and 1 of each Bisteel. Don't think you really need more. They're honestly not that great. Even if you hit an Engraver, if they already have the Snake Eye stuff, like, you're not really dealing with anything. They still get the full Snake Eye combo, but of course Mag is just insanely good, should be banned probably. 1 Druis, and the extra deck is very tight. You can see here we're not actually playing Desiree. I just don't think there's any space for it, unfortunately, and a lot of the Desiree lines just end up playing into Nibiru. So in my opinion, just playing this extra deck is probably the best possible extra deck. It's super tight, but these are all the cards that you absolutely require in the deck. Like Phoenix is maybe a flex spot, but you definitely want it for either clearing back row, making an end board that protects your monsters from being destroyed by battle, and of course unlocking yourself from the Princess lock. Otherwise you would only have Hida as the only option to do that, so it's really important, especially in the grind game, to have this, I think. So those are the most optimal Fiendsmith Snake Eye combos that I could come up with. If you guys have anything better, let us know in the comments below. Also, if you want to see more Master Duel content, definitely let me know.